So, PS5 has been out for around 6 months now, and we've been waiting for that real next gen game to blow our socks off and really announce a new era in gaming. Returnal was the first big name PS5 game to come out since release, and I wanted to see if this is the game we've been waiting for. However, with games now skyrocketing in price, Returnal was £70 on the PlayStation Store. I wanted to do an even more useful review and to give a rating and recommendation on how much I think it's worth, whether you should shell out your hard earned fun tokens and get it at full price, or wait for it to land in the bargain bucket and pick it up later. Now, just some disclaimers. I deliberately didn't read any other reviews or anything, so all I knew about this game prior to playing it was the trailer from last summer's PS5 announcement event. I limited myself to around 4 hours of gameplay for this review. I like to try and take in a game fully, especially when I first fire it up. But the sheer awe I felt when I first started Returnal is something I don't know if I've ever felt before in a game. It wasn't just the unbelievable setting and beautiful lighting and textures, but as the first true PS5 game, the feel of the utter panic and uselessness of fighting against a crashing ship into a strange planet was unreal. It was a case where, for the entire opening sequence, my jaw literally dropped. I sat there open mouthed, clutching the controller and wondering what the hell I was getting myself into. Yep, you heard that right. I felt like I was getting into this, way more than with any game I've felt before, and that's largely due to the wonderful DualSense. I was also using the Pulse 3D headset, and the combined assault on my senses was a real experience. First up, I just wanted to say that the character has, despite an utter confusion and despair at the situation she finds herself in, a desperately strong, unyielding attitude, but in a very believable way. So, personally, I feel like the decision to make the character a woman and not give the player a choice of gender is inspired because I just can't see a male character having the same approach to the situation, and it just gives it that much more immersive feel. Now, onto the actual gameplay. This game handles unlike anything I've played before. It feels so fast and responsive. I remember playing Bloodborne for the first time and just being shocked at how well it handled. And it was a step ahead of anything I'd felt before, and I got that exact same feeling here. Returnal handles amazingly, and after nearly 6 months of owning a PS5, I finally have the feeling that I'm truly playing a next generation game. This is the first time I can really feel the difference of what a PS5 game can be compared to a PS4 game. Whereas something like Valhalla, where it looks beautiful, it still felt pretty much the same as a game I've played before, but here it's the camera angles, the speed of animations, and the speed of response to every input. That combined with the gorgeous graphics, lifelike lighting, and the dual sense, this is now the step up, that noticeable improvement that I've been waiting for. At first, it's so great to be wandering around and exploring. I took my time just enjoying looking around, but it all changes once you pick up a weapon. Great controls and weapon mechanics. It's reminiscent to Mass Effect Andromeda, but it doesn't have the pitfalls of that terrible game. The best way for me to describe this game in terms of how it feels to play would be a mix between a Soulsborne and Star Wars Fallen Order, but with tones of Mass Effect around the sort of lighting and setting and the guns. Your ammo refills automatically after a couple of seconds, while you also have a powerful alt fire which takes a lot longer to recharge, but it's explosive. The way you change which type of fire you're using is through a really clever use of the adaptive triggers in the DualSense. It lets you half press down the L2 for normal fire and fully press it down for alt fire. It's kind of hard to explain and hard to get your head around if you haven't experienced the DualSense, but it's really intuitive and easy to use. It essentially splits L2 into two separate buttons. After a while, you also pick up a sword which allows you to melee attack, and I love it because it sort of looks like halfway between a samurai sword and a lightsaber. It's a weird planet full of freaky little glowing monsters, and the gameplay is roguelike in that you start with nothing except a standard handgun, and then you run through the game picking up power-ups and weapons, with some permanent upgrades in the form of equipment that you find at various stages, like the first handgun you find, or the sword, like I mentioned before. Now, the gameplay loop is essentially go into a room, clear out the monsters, and then pick up everything in that room before moving on to the next room and doing the same thing. Some rooms have no enemies and just have weird machines that give out buffs or places to spend the obolites, the in game currency, on health or other buffs. But the goal is essentially to get your character to a certain level of readiness to face the boss of that region. So far, I've only got to the first boss, and he's whooped me every time. But I can imagine that there are several regions with a slightly different aesthetic, but with a similar gameplay loop and boss at the end of it. You start off not knowing what's going on, but very quickly get into the hang of sprinting around from room to room, going about your business and looking for upgrades and buffs while blowing up these flying light bulbs like an angry moth. I do still stop and have a little look around every now and then, though, just to appreciate how pretty the game is. The replay value is insane with this game. It had to be with the style of it, but there's also some really weird story things going on, as you can imagine, with the fact that you're stuck on a planet where you keep dying and coming back to life. Remember, there are lots of games where you die and come back to life, but very few where this dying is actually a part of the story. Now, I usually see sites and publications give games a rating out of 10 or something, and that's great for knowing how good a game is. But as I mentioned at the start of this review, these days with games becoming so expensive, I wanted to give a bit more specific recommendation and to rate games on when and how you should buy them. These are 5, unbelievable game, buy it as soon as you can at the full £70, regardless of your personal taste. 4, great game, buy it at full price if you're particularly excited about this or you like this type of game, or in general, pick it up as soon as it goes on offer for 40 to 60 quid. 3, good game, get it when you see it on a great offer, so between 15 and 40 quid. 2, it's worth it if you wait for it to be free or less than £15. And then 1, just don't bother. Terrible. I wasn't actually expecting to like this game anywhere near as much as I do, because honestly, the idea around the game just didn't really excite me. I was expecting something similar to things I've played before, but with a visual polish and a fun little resurrection idea, but I'm completely wrong. This is not just a new take on a popular genre, this is a complete rethink of a video game, and if you own a PS5, then I recommend you get this game now. However, as it's so early in the PS5 life cycle, I don't know just yet if this is just because it's the first one and I'm so blown away. Therefore, I'm going to hold back on giving it the full 5 out of 5, and I'm going to give it a 4.5. I don't regret paying full price for this at all, and I can't wait to see what happens in the story. And as I say, if you have a PS5, you should be confident that if you pay full price for this game, you will not be disappointed. If you've been waiting to get a PS5 until a real next-gen game comes out, then this probably is the game you've been waiting for, but I'd maybe stop short of saying that you should go out and buy a PS5 just to play this. So, a 4.5 for the first big PS5 game makes me really excited to see what comes next because, as always with PlayStation, the future of gaming seems to be in great hands. Now, what do you guys think? Have any of you played it and think I'm right, or is there anyone who thinks that I'm completely wrong and completely disagrees? I'm really interested to hear views on this one because it's uncharted water and there's bound to be some really interesting opinions. So please let me know in the comments. And as always, if you enjoyed this, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Now, I'm going to sleep and I hope that I don't wake up on Atropos.